Good afternoon. I'm Diana Hart with Poplar Village Gardens, and we are going to start on the bright note today. We're in the greenhouse. We have some things growing in here. Down here we have some wonderful worm castings we were able to harvest from our 7 worm bins. And so now we have a mop bucket full of worm castings that we can use to augment the soil and give it extra nutrition and microbes. The other thing that you'll find in this greenhouse is we did plant some cold weather crops. Well, mostly spinach, and you can see that our spinach is growing very nicely in here. And now that we're getting more sunshine, the spinach is really going to start to take off. The other thing that we used the greenhouse for this winter was to start some new strawberry plants in our towers. We lost a lot of strawberries last year in our towers. And I think predominantly it was because of the unseasonably warm weather, followed by a cold snap. So what we did in here, these are the babies. We had a lot of runners from our strawberries that we did have at the end of the season. So we planted them in the towers. So we repopulated the towers with a lot of those runners. And then we put them in here, and we've been keeping them watered and protected for the winter so that when spring comes, we won't have to start all over again planting our towers. A lot of them will already be populated with strawberries. In this row over here, we have planted the rosemary. What I've discovered is that if I bring a rosemary plant inside, there's no way I'm going to be able to keep it alive. I don't know why. Just not a very good rosemary mom, I guess. But in this row, we did have some of our spinach come up. The rosemary is overwintering, and then once the summer gets here, it'll just take off and grow in this environment, but it will winter over and be a perennial in this sheltered space. The other cool thing that I've noticed is happening in this row is that we're starting to get some chickweed growing up. Chickweed is an edible plant that grows up in your yard, and it is forageable. And this is also our organic compost that it's growing in, so we know that it's growing in safe soil. So it would be safe to harvest and eat. And it's starting right here, and we're probably just going to let it go and see if it can take over part of this space so that we will have a nursery for the chickweed so that we can have safe forageable food that we can get. Before we go in the house to check on the baby plants, I just wanted to stop here at the rain barrels. We have two that are completely full and one that's partly full. We did have them open. We emptied them at the beginning of the winter. And it may be a little wishful thinking on my part, but we went ahead and closed all the valves and are starting to collect the water because I really don't think that we're going to get enough cold to be able to freeze these solid. Crossing my fingers. Right now, what you're looking at is our grow tent. Now, there are some things that no matter how much we would want to grow them, they just are not suitable to grow in this particular growing zone. One of those things is these plants right here. This is ginger. All I did was buy some ginger root and break it up, leaving like a couple of nodes on each section. And we put them in the soil, and they've been in the grow tent, and they're looking a little bit down in the dumps, but they're overall looking great. The other thing that we did is brought in some of our herbs that we had that we knew would not survive the winter. This is the Thai basil that we had, and then this is stevia. It struggled, but now it seems to be coming back. So, we're just trying to get them through the winter. On the bottom layer here, these were hibiscus plants that I had, and one of them did grow really well, and the others were doing okay. They didn't look very good by the time I brought them in because I waited too long, but they're all coming back, and even this one that looks mostly dead, you can see there are some leaves down here that are coming up from the bottom that tell me that this plant is going to survive. And what we will do once we get to spring and we can get them outside, is we'll go ahead and prune back the dead and allow those plants to be cared for by Mother Nature. So one of the things that's appropriate to do at this time of year is to start getting things started in the house if you have a desire to do that. And even with my old seed, these onions right here were very old. I just threw them all in there, and as you can see, so many of them came up. This is our setup for the downstairs, and we are down here watering a couple of times a day right now with our seedlings, but like the onions, the spinach, that kind of stuff can go out to the greenhouse. I'm just kind of waiting to see what next week's weather is going to be like before I put them out there in the greenhouse to finish their beginning of their growing. So here's the spinach that or one of the trays of spinach that we transplanted into the 2-inch soil blocks. I can see that they're having a little bit of an issue with moisture, so I may have to take off the humidity dome for a while. But these were transplanted into the 2-inch soil blocks like 2 days ago. So they don't look like they have suffered all that much from their transplanting, and they should be ready to go out to the greenhouse as soon as they are a little more established. This is where the magic happens. We've been using this germination chamber. It was donated to us about 3 years ago, and we have had it up and running. I didn't grow anything last year, so I couldn't show it to you, but this year the germination chamber is on. It's not very full because everything has already sprouted, but we have a tray in here where we started some rhubarb seeds, and when those come up, as soon as they sprout, we have to get them in under the lights. The setup here is just this old refrigerator that somebody gave us. It already had the insulation on the inside. Then I added the shelves and a crock pot that's attached to a thermostat. There's a heat sensor inside that tells you what temperature it is inside, that helps control the thermostat. And the crock pot, the crock was broken, but we just put another soup pan in there and we fill that with water, and then the thermostat will turn the crock pot on and off based upon the temperature that the sensor finds inside the germination chamber. What that means is that we're able to germinate our plants in a shorter period of time, which is really great, but it means when everything starts to come up, then we got to run. So that's what we're in the process of right now. We're getting ready to do some transplanting, and we probably need to plant more seeds. Before we go, I wanted to give you some food for thought. I am kneeling in this bed here that is installed with a bunch of native plants. As you know, we do like to plant natives because this is food for the wildlife and the insects, the native pollinators, those kinds of things. It just creates a better ecosystem for everyone. But I've been watching this area because I walk by it quite often, and I have noticed that at the base of a lot of these plants it's either starting, but I just really think that I haven't ever seen any of these plants completely go dormant. So the food for thought is, I'm thinking that these plants probably shouldn't have been green all season. We have definitely had a warm winter, and what that gives me concerns about is a couple of things. The unseasonably warm weather can cause plants to start growing and come out of dormancy before the weather is really going to be appropriate for it to continue. And then when we get a cold snap, we threaten the continuation of that particular plant if it's susceptible to the cold. Now, a lot of the green in this area is things like your creeping Charlie and some of the other stuff that just seems to never die. I think that the other thing that's really important about these mild winters is that the insects also depend on these plants. So if these plants are even out in nature and they're coming back early and getting destroyed, that can be a problem. For food production, we just want to take steps to make sure that we are protecting things like our strawberries until the season is really ready.